Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Chat, Stats, and Fun Facts, a 2025 season preview brought to you by the Dry Pink Dialogue. Today, we are talking about a goalkeeper for the first time in this series because this is a position of intrigue for Inter Miami. Today, we're talking about Óscar Ustari. We saw him for the first time this preseason against Universitario. He looked very calm, collected, made every save, wasn't asked to do anything spectacular, but he did everything you would have wanted from him. He looks very calm, very comfortable back there. What is the first thing that comes to mind when I say Óscar Ustari?
One word, absolute veteran. And we've seen him in 2 games, and it always seems like he's born to be a goalkeeper. Doesn't have to do anything too spectacular thus far, as you said, but everything that he does, basics at least, are completely up to par and very, very good. Calm, composed, comfortable is what you said, and I completely agree with that. Veteran it is, man.
Speaking of veteran, my fun fact is along those lines. He made his first appearance for the Argentine national team 17 years ago, back in 2007. So it has been a long career. He is absolutely a veteran, talking about hundreds of games in net. He knows exactly what he's doing at all times. It is no surprise that he is very comfortable back there. Is he going to be back there for Inter Miami this season? I think that's the big question. Now, last year, he signed midway through the season. I think luck was what brought him to Inter Miami. They went out in the summer and they acquired an extra international roster slot, preparing to sign another center back. That deal fell through. And so they get to the end of the summer window. They have another international roster slot. They don't really have anything to do with it. So they just signed a veteran goalkeeper that was a free agent that would have taken up an international roster slot. And it was, an old friend of Messi's and an Argentine and all of those things. So he comes in the summer clearly as a backup, just filling in that role because Inter Miami had an injury at goalkeeper. They had an international roster slot. It just made a little bit of sense. But I guess he made something of an impression. He gets year 2 with Inter Miami. And this year, I think everything is different for Óscar Ustari and for the Herons. Last year, Drake Callender was the obvious locked-in number 1 goalkeeper, second captain behind Messi. But this year, Ustari is going to be here from the start of preseason. He's going to be ready to go. Is he going to be the starting goalkeeper? I think that's the big question.
Javier Mascherano was asked a question, I think, after the Universitario game that I saw on Twitter, and his answer was, the better goalkeeper will play. There's no out-and-out first choice. We're going to see who's better, and we're going to put them in goal. In my mind, the better goalkeeper still at this point in time is Drake Callender. But what Javier Mascherano's interview tells me is that I think Óscar Ustari is going to get a lot more minutes. He's going to definitely have a lot more games in which he can play backup. I'm thinking of Leagues Cup, maybe a couple of CONCACAF Champions Cup games that might not be as difficult, if you may say so. And I think if he performs better than Drake Callender, he may actually eventually turn out to be the number 1 goalkeeper that Inter Miami has. It's going to be tough. It's going to be a lot of competition in that role. I think that's good. Competition is always better. And eventually, whoever is better in between the sticks, who's more composed, can command the back line really well, and can lead Inter Miami from the back, deserves to play. So I think at this point in time on paper, for me, Drake Callender is still number 1, but it's very, very close. And we'll see how their performances are during the course of the season. We talk about the goalkeeping position last season. CJ Dos Santos was an okay goalkeeper, but I think Óscar Ustari is a step up from him. So I think our second choice has definitely improved enough for it to now be a conversation about who's going to be first choice, who's going to be second choice.
Yeah, I don't think Inter Miami entered the offseason, and when they hired Javier Mascherano, I don't think the plan was to go with Drake Callender and Óscar Ustari as number 1 and number 2. But the way the offseason unfolded, I think they didn't get the guy they really wanted to be number 1. And so I think now the plan is to go with Drake Callender and Óscar Ustari as your number 1 and number 2. And what order, I think, is a conversation that we're going to have right now. So that is interesting. But I also want to make note that just because it's the plan right now doesn't mean it ends up being the plan by the time the window closes. If something comes up, I'm sure Inter Miami is not afraid to address the goalkeeping situation, and some big move could make this entire conversation moot. I think Óscar Ustari is very comfortable being the backup goalkeeper if that's how it plays out. If he loses to Drake, or if another goalkeeper comes in, or if Rocco Rios Novo is ended up being a superstar, like I think he's okay being on this roster as the backup. But if he gets to start, more power to him, and that's more fun. Just for the record, last season he played one game, that Toronto game at the very end of the season, second to last game of the season. He went 90 minutes, got a clean sheet, not a particularly good game. Inter Miami wins on a walk-off by Leo Campana in the 93rd minute or something like that. So he wasn't asked to do a ton, but he looked very calm and confident while he was, back there. It's just a matter of how you feel about Drake Callender. I think that Tata Martino, based on his experience with Drake Callender, what he went through in 2023, saw Drake Callender at his absolute best, was very confident going into 2024 with Drake Callender, and felt loyalty and had an understanding of how good Drake Callender could be. Javier Mascherano is not going to have that. He's going to understand that Callender has been the starter for the last couple of years. He's going to understand that he has high upside. He's going to have seen some of the highlights and stuff, but he's going to understand that he's a shot-stopping goalkeeper. But he's not going to have that earned trust that Drake Callender got back in that Leagues Cup when he's saving penalties and making miraculous stops. Óscar Ustari, same thing, right? These two have never been together either, or at least not for any significant period of time. So Ustari is going to have to earn it if he's going to earn it. It's not going to be given to Ustari. And if it's given to anyone, I think it's going to be given to Drake Callender. But Ustari is going to be given an opportunity. You mentioned cup games. You mentioned games that the second goalkeeper might actually get. That's not really been a thing for the last couple of years because CJ Dos Santos has not been. He's been a young to improve, not a veteran who is there and ready to go. They move on from CJ Dos Santos. They bring back Ustari. I think that whoever is the number 2 goalkeeper is going to get the Leagues Cup. I think that they might get some MLS games while the CONCACAF Champions Cup's going on. I think they're going to get 10 games this year in a way that they didn't get last year. So my best guess right now is that Óscar Ustari is still the backup and he will get 10 games this year, which is not nothing. That's a real role, and I feel very confident in him doing that.
Yeah, I really like the idea of having a veteran goalkeeper as your second choice. I think because they don't necessarily fight for the minutes and they don't become disgruntled if they're not starting every game. B, the experience is very important. He has obviously had the same, he's played in the Argentinian squad, speaks the same language as some of our backline. That always works well. The embedding of Óscar Ustari in this team is not going to be difficult anymore. He's obviously been with the team for a while now since he came in last season. But I'm comfortable him being the second choice goalkeeper. And if he turns himself into a first choice goalkeeper eventually, then that's only a positive, right? Because his performances will have to be better than Drake Callender's performances. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay with there being competition for positions and having a situation where one player, by virtue of his performances, gets to be the first choice. I'm okay with that because that's only beneficial for the team. So Drake Callender will have to perform well to earn a start. Óscar Ustari will have to perform well to earn a start. And that, for me, is going to be beneficial for Inter Miami moving forward. But yeah, I think there's a bigger role this season for a second-choice goalkeeper than there ever was previously. And we're going to see more minutes from Óscar Ustari this season around.
Okay, as a backup, whether it's to Drake Callender or to another goalkeeper or to Rocco Rios Nova, whoever, I think we feel incredibly comfortable with him as the number 2.
Correct.
I don't even know if there's much more to say. Give him the Leagues Cup, give him, a game or two in the MLS when you're playing a lot of Champions Cup games, right? If there's a big travel day, give the starting goalkeeper a day off. If you're going to do the same for Mets, there are times to get him games if he's the backup, and I think we both feel, and I think everyone should feel very comfortable with him as the backup. As a starter, let's talk about how he might profile. Now, let's be clear. We have not seen seasons worth of this guy play. He is 38 years old. He's not, he's not young. He has a lot of experience with the Argentine national team, being on the roster, only played 2 games with them, but has played hundreds of games as a starting goalkeeper. He's very calm, very comfortable. I think everyone knows what to expect when he's back there. I don't think that he has the elite upside as a shot stopper that Drake Callender has. We have not seen him tested in a very significant way, but based on the age, based on the fact that he wasn't in high demand when he came to Inter Miami, it makes me think he doesn't have that elite shot stopping skill in him yet that Drake Callender certainly has, if not as consistently as we would like. The other thing is I think he has a confidence in himself that younger goalkeepers and younger players in general can drift back and forth from and be more or less confidence driven. I don't think Ustari is going to have that. So if he becomes the starter, I think you can expect a very solid base level of goalkeeping play, but I do think the upside is a little bit limited. I know Drake Callender can win you games by making that key stop or that key block or just the quickness and the instincts coming to save Inter Miami when they're letting balls through. And I'm not sure Ustari has that. But maybe you want dependability because we also know Drake Callender 5 times a year is going to let in a goal that he should have stopped. And you might just have to live with that if that's the direction you go. Ustari won't do that in all likelihood.
Yeah, I will say though, I don't think there's any goalkeeper in the world who's never let in a few silly
Yes.
goals. I think it depends on the regularity of it. And yes, I think the upside with Ustari is his experience. He has probably seen pretty much everything in his 38 years, however many he's been playing as a goalkeeper. But you're right. We need to see what his reflexes would be, how quick he is at stopping some of those goals. I think his distribution is decent. He seems okay with his
Okay.
feet, which is good. Yeah, I think there's nothing wrong with that. But when it comes to why Drake Callender
But hold
is
on.
the
Let me
X
stop you there.
factor,
Let me stop you for a second. Just because he's better than Drake Callender with his feet, and I think there's no doubt about that, that does not mean he's elite with his feet. There are
exactly.
goalkeepers in the world that are elite. That is not what Óscar Ustari is. That's not what any goalkeeper Inter Miami's getting will be. So let's just keep that in mind. There's a difference
Yeah,
between being better than Drake and being really, really good at it.
and that's what I was getting at. The comparison between Drake Callender and Óscar Ustari with their feet is potentially negligible, in my opinion. Maybe Óscar Ustari is slightly up. The main conversation for comparison is the shot stopping. And as you mentioned, Drake Callender has that X factor. Does Óscar Ustari have that X factor? I'm not sure. Maybe he does. I think we'll need to see a bigger sample size to be able to judge properly. I think he does. I think he'll be able to pull out the stops, but this is going to come as we watch the season. I think we're going to be able to only tell whether Óscar Ustari is capable of being the number one by watching more games from him in the MLS and how he performs in the MLS situation. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. It'll be interesting to see how Javier Mascherano treats this particular conundrum, because it is a conundrum and it's very controversial among the Inter Miami fan base as well. And I'm not sure where I land in this at this point in time, but my instinct suggests Drake Callender is still the better goalkeeper in terms of what he brings to Inter Miami.
Well, let me ask you in a more direct way. This is a team that's not going to be hurting for goals. They have plenty of offense. Their midfield is talented going forward, but maybe a little leaky going the other way. And then defensively, you have a lot of young players that are going to be asked to do a lot of one-on-one defending, which means you're probably going to be hit in transition. And that's exactly what Inter Miami's seen since Lionel Messi came. You're going to get the opposition with transition opportunities. Do you want, in that situation, a goalkeeper who's more comfortable with his feet playing out of the back, so in possession, it's easier, is more consistent blocking the routine shots, or do you want the guy that has this spectacular save in him? I think maybe that's the question.
I do think, though, by saying just the guy who has a spectacular save in him, you're doing a bit of disservice to Drake Callender, because he
Sure.
has other attributes as well, right? He
No, but I
can
think
make a
those
save.
are the differentiators. I think they're
Yeah.
very, yeah.
If
I think they're both
everything
very
else is
good
correct,
goalkeepers.
yeah.
I think they're both very good goalkeepers, 7 out of 10 in most things. but the things that differentiate them are those things where they're 8 or 9 out of 10s, opposed to, base level 6 or 7 out of 10s.
It's a hard question to answer, but personally, I'm a Drake Callender apologist, so I'm going to go with him. I'll be honest. But I can see why somebody would want some dependency in the back and calm and composure and just a good average, above average performance every single time. I can see why you would want that as well. I'm a Drake apologist, as I said, and I would want him in goal if there ever comes a one-on-one opportunity where I think a save needs to be made. Just going to leave it there.
My last thing, if Drake Callender is the 2023 version of himself, it's Drake Callender. If Drake Callender is the 2024 version of himself, I think we have a competition and it might go back and forth. And you go with the hot hand. Okay, my over-under. It's a little different. I mean, we didn't really go down this way with the conversation, but 1.5 goalkeepers in 2025 that use an international roster slot. Over or under? Right now, it's just Ustari. Rocco Rios Novo, Drake Callender, both American, don't need one. Do you think we're going to bring in another goalkeeper at some point this season?
No, I'm going to go with under.
Okay. I don't know. I'm going to go with under too, but that's a guess. All right, guys, that's it for this one. We will have more of this conversation when we get to Drake Callender. But for now, thanks for watching. We will see you guys in the next one. Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in. Do us a favor and hit that like and subscribe button. Since our first viewer, sharing this with you all has been the very best part. So from the beginning until the end, thank you for being a part of this and have a wonderful day.